Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another Java tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to be learning about stacks. Now, what is a stack? Well, a stack is something that always adds to the top of its data structure. So, for example, let's say you have a stack full of integers, right? And it's full of 3, 2, 1, and 0. Where 3 is at the top of the stack. If you push 4 onto the stack, or add 4 to the stack, 4 will then become the first element of the stack, and everything will be pushed down. You can also pop things off the stack, and that pops stuff off the top of the stack. So let's go ahead and show how we create a stack and how it works. So, first thing we need to do is say stack, like that, and then we give it what type we want. So let's say integer, and we'll call this int stack. Set it equal to a new stack of integers, just like that. And opening, closing parentheses. Now, I want to say before we push things to the stack, if you try to pop something off of an empty stack, it will throw an exception. So I always recommend that when you're pushing and popping stuff off the stack, when you're manipulating it, do it inside of a try-catch with the empty stack exception, because if you don't, then you're not going to be able to handle the possible circumstance of trying to pop something off of an empty stack. So let's go ahead and we're going to create a method. Now what it will do is, so public static push to stack, right? And we will say we want to pass in a stack. We're going to call it stack. We'll say this, we only want to take in a stack that can take integers. Just like that. And then we'll say this takes in, int a, or int integers, and then have some periods after that. That will basically say, hey, we want to have, we basically want to have multiple ints added to this. Now let's see. Public static void. Just like that. Alright, cool. Now we have another error. What does this error mean? Alright, well, if that's not acceptable, then we will try on this end. Alright, there we go, that works. So now we say, oh, no it doesn't. Is that it? No. Okay, well, whatever. We'll just say we want to have an array of integers, just to get it over with. So, with that, we want to import stack. Once stack is imported, We will then say for every integer inside of integers, we are going to say stack dot, and in order to push something to a stack, you will call push. Right? And if we look at our documentation here, it says pushes an item onto the top of the stack. So once you do that, just pass in I, and it'll add all of those to our stack. In other words, we'll say public static void pop from stack. We'll say this will take in a stack where it has a bunch of integers, right? And here is where we need to use the exception. So try catch, and this will be an empty stack exception. We'll call it E, and we want to say E dot print stack trace, just like that. Perfect, right? And so with that, we will say stack, let's say actually for every int inside of the stack, we'll say stack dot pop. Now you can see this doesn't take in any parameters. This what this does will, as I said before, it will remove the object at the top of the stack and it'll return that object, but we're not going to assign it to anything. So we are going to pop everything off the stack. All right. So go ahead and save this so you don't lose your work. And right below where we defined our stack object, we're going to call push to stack. And in here, we're going to pass it our int stack. And then we're also going to pass in an array of integers. So we'll say we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so we have 10 items in our stack. We'll then go ahead and system out print line. We'll print out our stack. Now it looks like we have an error with our push to stack method, and we want so it's looking like that ain't gonna work with what we have here. So what we'll do then, instead, I think I've been programming too much Swift, so we'll say ints. So we'll say int array ints is equal to this. Just like that. Perfect. Then, we will pop from stack, and then we'll say int stack. Cool. And so system out print line int stack. Just like that. Cool. So now let's go ahead and save it and run the code. You can see here our stack is outputted here. And we can see we got an exception of concurrent modification exception. Now, where did this show up? This occurred in pop from stack at line 23. So let's go ahead and analyze what we did wrong. Okay, let's try something else. We'll say do while stack dot empty. The empty method will detect if it's empty. So if it's empty, so we want to keep going if it's not empty. Stack dot pop. And put a semicolon at the end of that. Okay. Now save it and run it. And there we go. Now it works just fine. We now have our stack full on printed out, and then our empty stack gets printed. That goes to show you how delicate you have to be with this. You have to be super considerate on how you go about removing items from these stacks. Otherwise, you're going to get an exception somewhere. But that basically does it for this video on stacks, guys. I hope you guys learned something. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we will see you all in the next one. See ya.